The hour being after 6:45, I'd like to open the January 12th school committee meeting, and we usually start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, we welcome the first Legos Robotics Club here this evening for a recognition. And Dr. Goff, do you want to start by talking about why they're here?
Sure.
And we're really glad to have you guys here.
Absolutely. So at a regional competition, I believe on December 10th, both the Walpole's 4th and 5th grade robotics team qualified for the first LEGO League State Championship, which was held on Saturday, December 17th at Worcester Polytech Institute. And so to qualify, the teams had to placed within the top 12 of 48 teams competing. So that's really impressive. It really is a huge accomplishment to have both teams make it, especially in what we say their rookie year. We'd like to recognize these students, their coaches, the volunteers, the mentors, and the parents for this tremendous achievement. I believe the 4th grade team is named the Radbots, and the 5th grade team is the Wild Wolf Pack. Love it. Even though neither team won the state championship, they were extremely thoughtful competitors and really supportive of the other teams and worked tremendously hard. So I just want to thank them for their dedication, their effort, their engagement, and be willing to join in is what is such a valuable opportunity and be able to take some risks. So I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Gallivan.
Yes, and thank you. You guys did a really nice job representing us as a town, and we love to see in person and be able to thank you for doing that. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to try to pronounce names properly, but I'm going to list your names. Maybe as I say your name, if you stand up. I noticed that people have some boards that you might want to show us, or you might have some things you want to tell us. We have a microphone there, and we do have a listening audience at home on TV. So I want you guys to get a chance to have your TV moment too. So maybe after I list the names, you can come up and shake our hands, and we might have a few questions for you, okay?
And if your names are pronounced incorrectly, it's okay to let us know. That's important. Your names are important.
Absolutely, yeah. We like to learn here too, so we will try. I'll try my best, but I also would be glad to improve. So, on my list, starting with, it looks like the 4th and the 5th grade teams are kind of mixed together, and you have some of your high school mentors here, and then some of your amazing adults who mentor. I'm wondering whether it's the elementary as well as the high school, but I know some of them mentor at the high school too. So here, welcome, and as I call your name, just stand up. William Oster, Gabriel Cison. Cison, thank you. Leander Alezi, thank you. Viraj Singh, Adith Satish, Mark Kaczynski, Salvatore Pisano, Harrison Finley, Arhan Maki, thank you. Luke Namowitz, Aditya Yathu, thank you. Ayush Adanki, Samuel Carlo, Adhav Jagan, okay, thanks. Joey Fitzmaurice, okay. Oleana Gorski, Shreyans Jadhav, not here either, okay. Liam Bryant.
How about this homework, Mrs. Gallivan?
Oh, these are some of the high school kids. Dayuth let me start again. Dayuthi Prajanth. Even if they're not here, we really want to recognize them because, oh, good. Sorry. Brendan Conover, Hirsch Mapani, Madeline Cataloni, Tane Singh, and Ryan Garbett. And how about if you guys just come up here, because if you stand up here, everybody in the audience, everybody at home will be able to see you. So maybe we can do some pictures that way too.
Everyone come and stand in front of the wooden part and face your families.
You can open up your poster boards if you want, show them off.
Oh, yes.
Whatever you want to do.
Yes.
The more excitement, the better. That's what it's good stuff.
Guys, you remember the
The other one, sorry.
go Red Box, go Wolfpack, all right? So when I say 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. So go Radbots first, then go Wolfpack, all right? So this time I'll count normal. 1, 2, 3.
Nice job. And while you're up here, why don't you turn around so we can at least shake some of your hands, because you're going to do special things these days.
That's good.
I just can tell.
Congratulations.
Very nice job. Congratulations. Thanks for your hard work. Nice job.
Raj, congratulations.
Nice job.
What's your name?
Congratulations, bud.
Good work. Nice job. That's okay.
Congratulations.
Nice job.
Nice to meet you.
Good work. Congratulations. Thank you. The volunteer stuff is so impressive. Absolutely. We love it.
Don't worry about it. We'll get it later.
Congratulations, Adi.
Well done. Good job. See you again. Excellent. All right.
Congratulations. Brian, right? Brian, nice to meet you. Madeline, congratulations. Brian, nice job.
Congratulations. You did some good work.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, it got really exciting over
Thank you.
there.
Thank you.
When it starts dripping down. Some really nice posters. Oh, and these are the mentors, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right, guys, one more. What we're going to do is go Timberwolves.
Nancy, do they have a video?
Yeah.
Do they have a video?
You mean?
Do they have a video up there to play?
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, video, okay. 1, 2, 3.
Brian. Do you have something you want to present?
I know we have a video about the season recap.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Introduce it,
Yeah.
maybe?
If you, just go to that. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good save, Sean. That was wonderful, you guys. And
Okay, guys, let's settle down.
just so you know, we asked Ryan to just explain a little bit about what you brought for us to see this evening, and we wanted to thank you because we heard great things about you as high school mentors. And I think that's one of the best things about Walpole is people step up and help out. So great role modeling, high school kids. We appreciate it very much. The floor is yours.
Okay, so my name's Ryan Garbett. I'm the coach of these lovely 2 4th and 5th grade teams with Walpole Public Schools. So these guys were made up of 15 kids from all 4 of the Walpole Elementary Schools, students in 4th and 5th grade. This is all new. We started this up over the summer with info meetings. So after the high school team got back from the World Championships, we really wanted to expand robotics in our community and expand the message of FIRST Robotics. And we really wanted to inspire young people in STEM. So we decided that we were going to kick off this team in partnership with the library. Miss Nikki right here as well. So basically, FIRST LEGO League is an international robotics program that works to inspire young people in STEM. So the youngest FIRST LEGO League starts is 3rd grade, and they have a bunch of different FIRST LEGO League programs all the way up until 8th grade. So what they're doing is FIRST LEGO League Challenge. So FIRST LEGO League Challenge involves building a competitive robot to compete on a 4-foot by 8-foot field. So it's this mat, we'll kind of see it in the video, and they'll have all these game missions they can do. So they'll have to build and design a robot to complete the different missions. So they'll use, Viraj wants to, so this is what one of the teams designed. So they'll use the engineering design process to create a robot to compete in the game. And then each year there'll be a theme around what they want to, or a theme around a project. So this year the kids had to come up with a renewable energy solution. And so what they created, if we want to show them the boards, you guys want to show them? You want to explain what they are?
Okay. First time on my TV.
Hold them up so they can see them. Hold them up high so they can see them.
Hold him behind me.
Guys, turn around.
Yes, you're talking, this time you're talking
Talk to
to
them,
us,
yeah.
you guys, okay? So I see the one that says Electron Portable Windmill. Can one of you tell us a little bit about it?
So, me. I
Okay.
guess. This is the Electron Portable Windmill. It's a portable windmill which you can carry anywhere you would like. It would mostly be sent to third world countries,
Okay.
and a little bit more less energy having countries, kind of, so like less energy productive. So
You guys want
That
to
gave
hold
us
the
a
board?
bit of an idea. Do you have a little bit more you want to say?
yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yes, it could be your turn.
It's powered by the wind, and it's a vertical windmill, which is a different type of windmill it's kind of like, it spins. Instead of horizontal blades, it has blades that wrap around the pole,
Yeah.
so it catches wind from any direction. So it can spin when there's wind from any direction.
So what our mom was saying is that it doesn't spin like this. It spins like this. So it spins more like if you were to twirl around, rather than spinning like this.
Very creative. Very, very creative. Let me just see if any of my colleagues up here have any questions for you.
Who has any questions?
Specific to the robot or in
Oh,
general?
anything that you might be thinking, Mr.
I have a
Nizio?
question.
Okay.
Okay.
So this was a new experience for everyone, right?
I've done something like this.
Okay. Well, how many of you were a little bit nervous to try something new when you signed up for this team?
Yes.
And how many of you are super glad that you signed up and did it? Yeah. So remember that, right? Trying new things is sometimes a risk, and it can sometimes feel scary and make us feel a little nervous or anxious. And to do it anyway is a brave thing to do. And look what came out of it. How many of you made some great friends?
Me.
And you went to the state championship, right? That's amazing, your first time out. So remember that the next time you're faced with the choice to try something new. See, think about what great things can come of it, okay? We're very proud of all of you. Well done.
Nice job, Mr. Ditzio, yep. And we still have to hear about the super solar problem solution.
So, I'll tell you about our problem was factories produce way too much non-renewable energy, which is like coal, like greenhouse gases. That's warming up our Earth, and our solution. Our solution was a windmill that is portable. It's a portable windmill. Yeah, it's a portable windmill. It's to catch more energy. We have solar panels connected to the pole to catch more energy. Yeah, to catch more energy for storing. Yeah, for sure. And we're trying to make a double windmill on both sides, but then we're also trying to have a windmill with less money. So we thought that factories would buy it, and so we took the double windmill off and only wanted to use one. And it's not going to be like a normal sized windmill because we're trying to, as Olive said, we're trying to keep the price low. So we're trying to scale it down. So basically, ours is going to be around how much? 144,700. No, like feet. Okay, 8 feet. Yeah, 8 feet.
Okay.
Around 8 feet. So you sell more, so that's it's more worldwide spread. Because factories usually are not buying solar panels or windmill to split the energy because it's a lot of money. So we're trying to fix that. And
normal windows can cost $2 million, $3 million. This costs around 120,000.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Sounds like Mike's over there.
Fantastic presentation, you guys. It sounds like you had to do some changes along the way, like you
Yes.
thought about one idea and then you had to change a little
We
bit?
had many different meetings together, so every time Ryan would show us a video which might help us or might have to do with the environment, and every time we saw something, we have a journal, and then that journal they'll have some questions and we'll see if that benefits us or not.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Originally started with since we were focusing on factories producing less stuff. At first we were focusing on maybe making stuff to produce their products that wouldn't need light sources, which would waste energy. But then we realized that might be a little too complex. So then we looked at how about ways to get energy instead of ways to stop spending energy.
I just have to say, you're making a very, very, very good, commercial for this whole program. Because the things that you...
Mike's in. Buy two. He wants to buy two of those.
No, you present yourselves very, very well, and we appreciate that very much. Yep. This guy at the end, Mr. Frisha, he's the one to talk to. And if you're looking for who you market to, who might be interested, he's the man.
We have one more interesting thing.
Oh, sure.
So we talked to the state. So we talked to a few state representatives. I think it was an engineer, and we presented our thing to him, and he actually said that he'd take the idea back to his colleagues.
Yeah, he said it was possible, but there is some rules there that they have to check before actually making this possible. But it had a good chance of
Awesome.
Well, you all present very well, and I think it is a very positive thing for you to have done this. As Mr. Nizio said, trying something new is challenging, but I hope that you continue and share your knowledge with other people, but we're really glad to have had you here tonight. And I think we get to see your video now, so why don't you guys go sit down? Thank you. one more comment before you are ready to leave.
Yes, I just wanted to say one comment about Ryan. Can you stand up right there for me? I just wanted to say something about this young man. Back in 2018, maybe, when Dr. Hahn and I were principals at the 2 middle schools, we started and piloted a project-based learning for a small group of 7th graders, and we needed to get some interest. And Ryan was one of them. And we felt that, well, since we were going to pilot this, we better be the mentors, right? Going to practice what we preach. And I was Ryan's mentor, and he probably thought, oh, great, I got the principal, right? My mentor. And I just remember just, how dedicated but how quiet you were. And I look at, how you're leading this group, and I am so impressed, and I'm so proud of you. And his project back then, if you're interested, and focused it on using smart technology to enhance education while being energy efficient. And he interviewed a lot of stakeholders in order to find out their information about smart technology and how it can be applied to the school system. So always thinking back then and volunteering now. So thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Just piggyback on that, I just wanted to know, Ryan was actually the coach of the year at the regional.
Nice.
Oh,
Congratulations.
that's fantastic. And I'm just going to repeat that because in case people are listening, they might not have heard that we just learned that Ryan was the coach of the year for this whole organization, not just Walpole, but the state of Massachusetts, it sounds like, huh? That's fantastic. We really, really, really are proud of all of you guys, but that's a big deal, Ryan. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks for coming, everybody. And we hope to see you back here with other great things that you do in the future, but you don't have to stay here for the rest of our meeting. It's a little not as exciting as your part was.
Thank you very much.
Night all.
Thank you, everybody. Congratulations.
I didn't realize that. I'm glad Therese mentioned
It was in the first communication she sent us.
I know.
I'm not sure why it wasn't.
What's that?
Good to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you. Take it easy.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
You know what it was in my first communication, and I just forgot about it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So we're going to hold on to the student report. I'll do that.
Sorry, English department.
Oh, man.
And thank you. My son was part of that team, so that means a lot as
Awesome.
a
Of
parent.
course.
Remember that.
Of course.
That was nice. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to skip the high school student report. We're going to condense it into the superintendent report because unfortunately our high school student is not well this evening. No, you're good, Shannon. So we are ready to do the ELA report. Dr. Lynch? Dr. Lynch. Dr.
You are back to the past.
You're back.
Wow.
Okay. We have Shannon Finley, who's our K-5 literacy coordinator, who will be presenting, giving a ELA update, along with Jody O'Rourke from the middle school and Lauren Culleton, our department chair.
The floor is all yours, Shannon. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I think I know all of you, but I am Shannon Finley. I'm the K-5 ELA curriculum coordinator, and I'm thrilled to talk about elementary literacy. I have a John Dewey quote up here: "Do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience." And I think it sort of summarizes literacy this year for us at the elementary level in terms of really thinking about reflecting on our practice, what's really going well, and where are some areas in which we can improve. We have been full steam ahead since I started in 2018 in terms of implementation, which is why I think it is a great time, maybe because we're implementing a math curriculum, that helps as well, but to just think and reflect about literacy. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a timeline in terms of the curriculum that we have implemented. As I mentioned, my first year in 2018, we implemented Foundations in kindergarten and first grade, which is our systematic explicit phonics curriculum. In 2019, we implemented that same curriculum in second grade to build upon what we were teaching our students in kindergarten and first grade. And at that same time, we implemented the units of study in writing to have a K-5 vertical alignment in terms of teaching students how to be writers and teaching the writing process. In 2020, we implemented the units of study in reading K-5 for the same reasons, to have common language and a common scope and sequence for kindergarten through fifth grade. And then in 2021, we implemented Heggerty, which is our explicit phonemic awareness curriculum in kindergarten and first grade. And then this year, a light load, in third grade, we implemented Foundations, again, to build upon K2. And then we also implemented more of a homegrown word study that builds upon the third grade Foundations and a lot of phonological awareness, morphological awareness, in grades 4 and 5. And so, as I mentioned, it's a good time. I don't think we do this enough in education, is just to take a minute and think about what's going well and where are some areas that we can improve. And so when I think about supporting teachers and administrators in doing that work, the two things that really come to mind and that we're focusing on this year are looking at data to really see what our students are showing us, that their strengths and where they need support, and also the most current research in terms of teaching literacy. In terms of assessment and data, this is our second year of implementing iReady, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about that on the next slide. But we also know that we don't look at just one measure for student success, and so our curriculums also have embedded assessments that we utilize, as well as the MCAS data, and also our daily observations with students. And so just a reminder, I think I presented this last year at school committee, but our iReady is our K-5 universal screener. It's an adaptive online assessment, and it measures the 5 domains of literacy in terms of phonemic awareness, phonics, high-frequency words, vocabulary, and comprehension, both in literature and in informational texts. It's adaptive, meaning that if a student is ready for more complex questions, it adapts and gives them more complex questions. And if a student needs a different type of question, the test will adapt for that as well. We do that 3 times a year in first grade through fifth grade, and 2 times a year in kindergarten for progress monitoring. There are also additional offline tasks that are administered to any students that show potential signs of reading difficulty, either on iReady or if we're just noticing something throughout our other battery of assessments, as well as additional dyslexia screenings, offline tasks. We've undergone some professional development with iReady, both last year and this year, and we use iReady to then think about the rest of our assessment calendar to make sure that we're not over-assessing our students, but that we're also assessing in all the domains that we want information. This data, as well as the other data that I mentioned, we use in grade level team meetings to really analyze and think about our next steps in instruction. And so just to give you a little bit of a comparison, we have only done the fall diagnostic this year. Next week, we will start the 2-week window for the winter diagnostic. But I thought it might be helpful to look at a comparison of our fall diagnostic scores last year compared to this year. And so you can see, I put the schools next to each other, and then based on percentages, we are slightly better in terms of percentages of students that are at or above grade level at this particular point in the school year. All the schools are relatively close. It's even closer than maybe the numbers show based on number of students in each school, as well as some of our specialized programs at each of the elementary schools, or at some of the elementary schools, I should say. And just using that data to sort of predict the future data in terms of winter and spring. This, again, is a chart that just highlights the fall data compared to then the growth in winter and spring. And so we can hope, or we can predict based on our instruction, that the data will improve. Again, are always looking for where we can improve. Until that's 100%, we're always looking for ways that which we can grow and improve. And so through that and how we do that is really this cycle of ongoing assessment and reflection, where we're assessing, and not just to assess, but really to reflect and plan and then teach. And so, for example, our first diagnostic window was September 19th through the 20th, and then we gave that assessment, and then we used our grade level team meetings the week of October 10th to really look at that data, collaborate together as a team with myself, the literacy specialists, and classroom teachers to really think about what we needed to do in terms of instruction through differentiation as well as collaboration. And so just to give you a snapshot of what the data looks like for a classroom teacher, this is just a sample grade 3 class, but K through 5 data looks the same. And you can see how it sort of measures the 5 different domains of literacy and breaks that down for the class. So as a classroom teacher, you can look at this data and see overall strengths of your class as a whole, and then overall areas in terms of areas in need of some additional support. You can also tease it down by student and look at individual students, and again, to see their strengths and then their areas of opportunity. And so that's what we use those grade level team meeting time to do, and then make plans based on our curriculum. And so the second part, as I said, data is one thing and then research is another. Over the last few years, a lot of research and information about teaching reading has made its way into education and into the media and into the community. And so one of the things that we really want to be mindful of is that research, and using that research to inform our practice around, especially around how the brain learns to read. Some new research is out there based on MRI scans and the latest science. And so taking that research and really thinking about how that impacts our instruction. The science of reading is not a curriculum, it's not a thing, it's a body of research in which educators need to know in order to best implement those practices in their classroom. And so some of the things that we've done, as I mentioned, over the last couple of years and continue to fine tune and look at is teaching explicitly phonics, K3, and phonemic awareness, specifically in K1 and also in our upper grades, implementing advanced word study, again, where we're building upon the foundation from K3 and really having students think about morphological awareness of words to better understand words in order to overall improve their vocabulary and their comprehension. We have our universal screener in K5, which, as I mentioned, is iReady, as well as those additional offline screening assessments, and then our tiered intervention plan, in which is customized per student, right? We look at each individual student and then think about what's best for that particular student, and then our ongoing professional development and collaboration. And then finally, what's next? Like I said, we don't stop until 100% of students are working at grade level. And so just a couple of things that are on the horizon. As I mentioned, the second iReady diagnostic starts actually next week. This is a great assessment because it gives two measures. It gives a diagnostic grade level measure, but it also gives a growth measure. So even for our students who are not yet working at the grade level, we are able to monitor and show progress and show growth, which is great. As I mentioned, we will tee up our grade level team meetings the week of January 30th to focus on looking at that data, and as I mentioned, that cycle of ongoing assessment. We have professional development, which is being facilitated by the literacy specialists on February 10th with our K through 2 teachers around interactive read aloud. We are also making revisions to our pre and post reading assessments to better match the language and structure of the MCAS. As we looked at the MCAS data from last year, it was hard to say whether our students answered the question right or just misinterpreted the question. There was a lot of, they were asked to write a story and they made a prediction, or they were asked to write a story and they wrote an essay. So really thinking about how throughout the year in the assessments that were already given, how we can better align the language of those assessments to what they will be asked to do on the MCAS. Continued collaboration with a heavy focus on writing right now, partnering with a lot of teachers around our literary essay unit, which is grades 3, 4, and 5 at this time of year, which is great. Continued collaboration with Julie Martin at the Daniel Feeney. I was there for a staff meeting and gave a brief workshop on the importance of phonemic awareness with the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So that was great. Continued collaboration with my partners over here, Jody and Lauren, to ensure that K-12 alignment. Jody is actually bringing some middle school teachers over to a 5th grade classroom next week to see a writer's workshop in action, which is great. And I also attended a staff meeting just to talk more about what we're doing at the elementary level in order for to, again, keep that communication and that alignment going. And then I'm always learning. My family laughs at me because I constantly have my AirPods in, and they'll be like, what podcast are you listening to now, Mom? And I'm just always trying to keep up with the most current information out there and filter that information to get the best information to then bring back to myself and to the staff around most effective literacy practices. And then this time of year is really to start looking ahead to summer and what curriculum projects we need to accomplish, and also what professional development we might think about for next year. And then I just wanted to end with a few pictures of students in action, because that's the most important part, right? I'm sure you don't get into classrooms nearly as much as you wish you could. Here's some of our K2 readers. You can see decoding words on the left. We have a Foundations leader with his letter P, if my eyes are up there. And then here's me in 2 classrooms. The top one is a kindergarten classroom demonstrating for a teacher how she might support students that are ready to start blending sounds together to read words. And then on the bottom is a 2nd grade classroom. It was a group of students that were ready for a challenge in terms of noticing multiple main ideas in nonfiction texts. So collaborating with teachers there. And then there's some partnership. There's a lot of reading buddies across our district in terms of upper grade students reading with younger grade students, which is really great to see. 2nd grade focused heavily on nonfiction these last few, probably about 6 to 8 weeks, and they researched, they wrote books that were meaningful to them, things that they knew all about, and then they also read books about new topics and created books in Book Creator and posters, and wrote informational books, which was really pretty cool. Grade 3rd, we just came out of a big nonfiction unit, so they were also doing nonfiction and thinking about expository text versus narrative nonfiction, which is more of biography. And you can see one of our specialists, Lynn Cook, up there collaborating with the teacher in terms of the mini lesson. And then 4 and 5, they were heavy into a research project before the holidays. 4th grade was studying wild weather and extreme weather, and then working in collaborative groups to present that and teach each other that information, and then present that information to the class. And 5th grade was involved in inquiry projects and researching projects that were near and dear to themselves, and then teaching the class in multiple ways about that information.
Great. Lots of information. Thank you. Are there questions for Shannon? Mr.
Start with
Buckley?
them, or- Oh, thank you,
Oh, yeah,
through
go
you,
ahead.
Madam Chair. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I know you've been with us, I believe, 5 years
Yeah.
now in the district, so, and I think you're doing a fine job, and I applaud the enthusiasm with which you attack your job. This is sort of out of my bailiwick, although I do love words, as my colleagues can attest to you. My,
No.
I mean, you just said bailiwick, so like.
I see, that's why I did that. It's all part of the show. I do have a question, just more of an intellectual curiosity question about, you said, and you called out in your presentation that I think 3 or 4 pages ago, talking about how you incorporate sort of the latest academic research. And I'd love to just, I know you get into this in much greater detail with the curriculum subcommittee, but how you make those sort of decisions. Obviously, there's an ebbing and flowing series of scholarly ideas about this is what you should focus on for early reading, and I think perhaps for some of the other longer serving people in the district, they could attest to a couple of different sort of waves back and forth of the pendulum about what to focus on. So how do you sort of vet not only for the direction of how we do reading and how we focus on that portion of education, but also the professional development end of it? How do you sort of vet out which programs to do? I would assume we do a lot of modeling with our neighbors to see where other people are going, but I can only imagine that there's completely contradicting ideas out there about how to do this enterprise. And so I'd just be really fascinated to see how you kind of parse through that
Yeah, it's
to what we do.
I think, quieting the noise and focusing on the research is how I've sort of approached it over the last 2 years. I mean, there's so much out there that I feel as an educator, it can be really challenging. And so I think, really drilling down to what does the research say? What does scientists say versus what does someone that is trying to make money or someone that's trying to sell something say, I think has kept me personally grounded. Knowing who to listen to in terms of researchers and professionals. Nell Duke from the University of New Hampshire, from the University of Michigan, for example, is just a super knowledgeable researcher who just studies how the brain works and how it looks in application. So I think that has helped me too, just know whose voice to listen to a little bit more. Definitely seeing what's repeating in terms of all of the research. So what is the important things? As we know, phonics is something that constantly comes up. And so I think, and that was prior to even me starting here. That was something the district saw a need for and implemented, and I was the one sort of that then carried that through. As I mentioned, phonemic awareness, again, that comes from brain scans of readers versus non-readers, and that phonological processor is developed in a reader and not as much in a non-reader, and so how can we strengthen that for all of our students? I by no means am an expert, so like I said, I'm constantly just trying to educate myself to then support the district and my teachers in terms of curriculum and best practice.
And if I could add, Shannon does a fantastic job to make sure she does not just have a singular focus on one curriculum resource or one curriculum item. And I think a lot of the controversy that's come out of literacy is when a singular focus is the focus or the only focus. And Shannon has worked really hard to ensure that Walpole students get everything they need from a multitude of different resources and different areas of research. And I think that's a lot of the things that drives our conversations and the work with her literacy specialists is around making sure that we are not this school who identifies with this piece of curriculum, but rather we are a school that identifies with our students' learning and all the things they need to be successful, which is why I think you saw so many resources and so many things in her presentation to ensure that she's really looking at the student learning rather than one singular piece of curriculum. And I think it's something we've done very well, led by Mrs. Finley on that.
No, I agree, and I think it is a good thing to sort of model and demonstrate that we're coming from the academy and that it's, unlike other disciplines perhaps, it may seem more fluid, but just showing that our highly educated staff is continuing in that process through their professional development as well, but there's just a real deep academic backstop to that. I think it is helpful to kind of showcase, as you say, with all those different sort of components that come together to create what we're doing. I think that's helpful. I mean, once a month I get like some crazy YouTube video on Facebook from some parent who just watched 3 hours of we have to change the entire curriculum of pick a subject. So I like forwarding where those academic decisions come from.
And I think what you said is the key. It's teacher education. If we have strong teachers who know how to teach reading, it doesn't really matter what curriculum. You can give them anything and they'll be successful. It's when they don't have that knowledge and they don't have the support or they don't have the tools to learn that, I think that's where you can run into challenges, right? And so I think just like always, to your point, like how can we best educate our teachers because they're the ones that are on the front lines, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Barry.
Yeah, to that point, thank you, Mrs. Finley, firstly. And I think this goes along with what your comments, Dr. Hahn. I think if you're somebody who has seen these media mentions about the research on literacy instruction and are sort of only casually following it or reading the headlines or hearing bits and pieces, from phonics versus whole language and science of reading, that you would be inclined to believe that there's this massive revolution occurring in how we teach. And I wonder, I think you've spoken to this a little bit already, but maybe just to put it in black and white for whoever might be listening at home, how can we situate Walpole in that context for people? So who might be worrying about, have we been on the wrong track for a really long time? Are our teachers now being forced to do a 180? And people who might just have that concern because it's a complicated topic.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think the focus tends to be on the early grades in terms of kindergarten through second and third grade. In terms of phonics, I think too, in terms of the universal screener, I mean, that is something relatively new that I think is super important in terms of early identification of students that could possibly lead to later learning. The earlier that you can intervene, obviously, the better. So I think having those two pieces in place are really strong. I don't feel like, if I had to say where we are in this, like, I feel like we're like in the middle, right? We believe, like, as Bill said, in our teachers, we believe in individualizing our instruction for our student. We don't believe in a one size fits all, which, if you really nitty gritty get to the curriculums that the movement is promoting, are really one size fits all, that usually are not culturally responsive. And so that's not a belief of our community to go in that route, right? So just back to what I said, I really think it comes down to the teachers being knowledgeable and having effective strategies and knowing how to teach students is my number one priority in this role by far, which is why I think it's so important that I'm in the classrooms, I'm seeing what's going on, which I am, just on the picture.
Thank you. I mean, that was my perception, right, that we were not, caught in this untenable position with our curriculum or needing to make massive change, but I think it's good to have that spoken out explicitly for people who might have those concerns. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
Mr. Ahern.
Thanks. Thank you for your presentation. I expect to hear myself through this. Two questions, kind of outcomes-based. The first was with the screener in place. I'm wondering if that has helped to uncover more students that might need additional support and what that might look like for them.
I mean, I feel like we always had, even without a set screener, our literacy team, even again, prior to me being here, had a strong way to identify students in terms of needing intervention early. Our schools have a strong response to intervention team, and they've always been very proactive in terms of that. So I don't know if it hasn't really felt super new for our literacy team, I don't think, or our teachers, because it's always been something that's been in place. I think it's a little more well-defined in terms of just, or more consistent, I should say, across all 5 schools, because we do now all have, and it's not subjective. iReady is not, like, they go on, they do their thing, and we get the data, where a lot of other additional one-to-one assessments in terms of literacy can be subjective, because you're human, and this little human, and you're like, oh, well, this maybe had an off day, or, so I think that I really like, because then with the offline tasks, you have, it's your first line of defense, for lack of a better word, and then you can tease out, like, oh, this is surprising, like, let me try X, Y, and Z, right? And it either confirms or it refutes, right? And then you make a plan based off of that. So I don't think it's, I think, as I said, I think we've always been pretty strong in that field, but I think it has sort of made our 4 elementary school, the process a little more consistent.
Thank you. My second was kind of about the preschool connection to kindergarten. I know last year we did implemented Heggerty in K and 1, and I'm just wondering what kind of the downflow into preschool might look like.
Yeah, actually, our preschool, I believe our 4s class, they actually have implemented foundations prior to this year. I think maybe the second year that I was here, so 2020, they have taken pieces of foundations. Again, a small portion of our kids go to Daniel Feeney that end up in our kindergartners, but why not, right? Like, if we have this group of kids, and then they are also implementing Heggerty. That was one of the reasons that I went and spoke, because of just the importance of, whether you're doing Heggerty or not, of just a lot of the phonemic and phonological awareness games and activities. And for those of people that don't know, basically phonemic awareness is manipulation of sound without letters. And so when you're little, even when you're 2, 3, you can have kids manipulating letters and sounds without having to attach it to print. That's like the next step. So once they can do that, then, or along the way, then you start to connect the sound to print. But it's really the first step in being able to be a proficient reader and a writer.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, great. And the energy is fantastic, Shannon. We love it. We love it, love it, love it.
Thank you. Try to keep it up.
So next we have Jody O'Rourke, who is our middle school humanities coordinator, and Lauren Cullerton, who, as you know, is our 6 through 12 department chair.
Welcome, Jody. It's nice to meet you in person.
Thank you. Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me. As mentioned, I am Jody O'Rourke. I'm your new humanities coordinator for 6 through 8. Just quick, this is not about me, but quickly, this is my 28th year in education. I'm coming to you off of 20 years in Framingham. I taught, I started as a grade 7 teacher, and then advanced to literacy specialist, and then we changed the title and our hat to coach, and then became the department chair at the school I went to, and at the school my mom taught as well. So that was home, and it will forever be my home, but as I said in my interviews, this is my home now. I'm a resident of Walpole. My son goes to the high school, so I really feel passionate about being a stakeholder in the community in which I live, and I'm very honored to be in this position, so thank you. So yeah, I wear 2 hats. I'm the humanities coordinator, so I work closely with the ELA department and social studies, so I will be back in February to talk about social studies. But as you know, we have 2 middle schools right now, Johnson and Byrd, so I split my time between the 2 buildings, and the 2 principals have been fantastic in welcoming me, and I have office space at each one. But we know our vision is to have a joint school in the year 24-25. So, I'm starting this 2-year journey, which is not easy. It is messy. It is hard. Change is hard, so I really want to publicly applaud the teachers because this is not easy for them. It's very hard to depersonalize the work that they're doing, and they're doing phenomenal work. But it's really important for us, as the quote says, that each one of us can make a difference, but together we can make change. And it is time for some change for the betterment of our students here in Walpole. So in order to make change, as Shannon said, we look at data. And here my quirky little ELA mind here is going to a prologue, right, which comes before. So I need to look at my data before we make some changes. And Dr. Hahn reminded me, you have 2 years to do this, Jody. You don't have to rush. You don't have to go on full speed ahead. But I have the energy as well and want to, build Rome in a day. But we are taking it step by step. So when I came on board, as you know, we already had the data from the 2020 ELA audit that was done by Teachers 21. So I've read extensively that audit and just highlight here a few of the things that we are working on. We're continuing to have experiences for students to show their voice through their writing, which is also important for our culturally responsive classrooms and having students be able to share their experiences. In terms of the writing process, we are really striving to look at the revision stage of that writing process to increase their sophistication of writing. And there is indeed a difference between revise and edit, and that's really hard developmentally, but striving for that as the students are writing. And really instilling habits for independent reading. We are focusing on that as well, which you will see in a few slides is linked to also our school improvement goal. And just an example of students showing voice, teachers often have, quick journal entries, or it can be as substantial as a summative writing assignment if they're able to do like a personal narrative or a memoir, but we're giving students more choice now in terms of multiple prompts, multiple entry points. They don't have to all write about the same thing. So one quick example just of this was a 6th grade writing prompt. Again, a teacher wanting to learn about our students and our social emotional lens as well. Write about one special food or meal that you, and I keep striving that, right, that you share with your family, et cetera. Again, a quick, jot down in a notebook for this teacher to be able to learn more about the student. Of course, we look at our MCAS data, and so some bulleted items from our 2021 MCAS data. Of course, we need to further develop the idea development in our students' essays, but as Shannon noted as well, making sure that they are answering what they are asked in the prompts. Citing evidence from 2 texts is another skill that we work on, not only in ELA, but social studies as well. Of course, always making inferences, analyzing the cause and effect of character development, and the impact of author's craft. And that's something we're really starting to look at in terms of blending together reading and writing and using mentor texts when the students are writing to see what true authors are doing with craft, and then can they mimic that in their own writing. So there's just a couple examples here. of essays that teachers have asked the students to do in terms of drawing evidence from two different texts. They read The Jacket by Gary Soto and Fish Cheeks and had to pull evidence from both. And then they also, this is a sixth grade novel, The Breadwinner, and then they read a Newsella article about a female taxi driver and cited evidence to show how they were similar and different. So again, using the audit, using MCAS data, of course there are other data points, student work, observations and so forth that we use to drive and change some of our instruction. So building upon the district's goal, which I know you're fully aware of here, JMS and BMS are doing a great job to promote and to the joining of the two schools coming together. So I'm not sure if this is new as years past, but we worked together to craft the ELA goal. So I sat with Ed and Steve to create the goal. So our ELA goal is to enhance the middle school ELA program by promoting increased opportunities for independent reading and writing, meaningful teacher feedback, differentiation, and student-centered instruction. Again, all stemming off of data points that I mentioned previously. So with those four sort of buckets of things that we're striving to work on, I here have a slide for each one. So increasing independent reading and writing. Perhaps a little easier said than done, and we are coming off of COVID where we are trying to break some quote bad habits and instill some new ones. So we are reestablishing the space and expectations for independent reading, and that they would be asked to do some more work at home than maybe they have in the previous years. Bringing back library visits. I've seen this, and the kids are so excited to be able to getting books in their hands and visiting the library at both JMS and BMS. Really working hard with, or really working well with Anne and Sue, our media literacy specialists at both middle schools, to provide multiple entry points for students to read. You know, reading is not a pleasurable experience for all students and can be a challenge for our struggling readers. So if they perhaps have the accessibility to read an ebook or read the print version or a PDF version because they prefer it on their device, or an audio version, we're really making sure that we have those different options so we can increase that independent reading in our students. As we are revising and crafting our new units of study, we are trying to follow the model as they do in elementary school, that when independent reading selections are made, they match the genre. So if they are studying a unit of nonfiction, then the students will be urged to take an independent reading book that is nonfiction as well. So they are immersed perhaps in two texts at that time and can be really starting to see the elements of that genre as they're reading. Taking time at the beginning of the year to explicitly teach active reading strategies. Again, building in our book options for our new units. I'll speak more to this in the next slide. Allowing opportunities in terms of the independent writing for those quick, short writing bursts in their notebooks, and providing students with more than one writing prompt, as I mentioned previously as well. So both of our schools currently have book challenges going on. There's a picture there highlighting one that's happening right now at JMS. Sixth grade teacher at BMS did a wonderful readathon day with her students where she was trying to increase the reading stamina of students. So they started one day with just reading for 10 minutes, and then the next day would read for 15 and then 20, and this was the culminating day. They read for 30 minutes, and I was there, and they were lying on beach towels, and they were sitting in camp chairs, and every so often they'd stop, and they'd have a dance party, and it was wonderful, and it was, you know, also trying to send home to the message that reading can be fun. So that was great to see. Again, some smiley faces there, visiting the library, getting her books in hand, and then an example of a 7th grader completing an independent writing assignment. Another part of our goal is meaningful teacher feedback. And we are currently in both disciplines, but I'll focus on ELA here, revising our writing rubrics to make sure that we have consistent language and expectations with MCAS, and then you know, across the district as well, and then in social studies as well. So students are seeing the same expectations and seeing the language repeated. Conferring with students about reading and writing, trying to increase this exercise with students. Time is precious and time is hard, but we know that it's important to have one-on-one conversations with students about their reading and writing so you can get in depth to what their strengths are and what their areas of challenge might be. Providing targeted feedback on Google Docs, that I've heard from the teachers has been a win in terms of COVID, with being able to access those documents and to write comments right on the Google Docs. It's one thing to make the comments. We're striving now to have the students put action behind those comments that the teachers have worked really hard to make. And trying to use some more questioning techniques to push their thinking. We all want students to do well, and we sometimes rush to give the answer. But trying to pause, which is not easy as an educator, and push their thinking so they can improve. So this is just part of an example of a rubric. There's so many out there that we're working on, and I feel like rubrics will forever be drafts. They're never going to be stagnant because we need to always be changing them. So this is an example of one that we've started to work on. But if you were to dig deep, you'd see that we are taking language right from the MCAS rubrics and moving to a 5-point system because that's what they will be evaluated on during MCAS. So there's just more consistency, not only for the students, but for parents too, so they can make some parallel comparisons between data points. Next is differentiation, and this is something near and dear to my heart. We are, again, trying to provide multiple book options for students rather than just whole class reads. There's certainly appropriate times for whole class reads. So you'll see that later on in our scope and sequence, we are moving to 4 units per grade level, one per term, and for now, slow and steady wins the race. We will be keeping 2 whole class reads per grade level, and then we will be moving to book clubs and choice for the other 2 terms. Newsela ELA is a wonderful resource that we have, thank you, from the district, and teachers are really using the leveled articles to their advantage and being able to have students change the Lexile level of the article to meet their needs. The articles also are in Spanish, if perhaps an EL student might need that, and there's a read aloud option as well. So that is a wonderful resource that the teachers heavily use. Again, allowing for more student voice and choice as much as possible. Really starting to get to know my wonderful digital learning coaches as well, and experimenting with tasks that speak to multimodalities and trying to incorporate more choice in terms of podcasts, using Book Creator, having choice boards. It doesn't always have to be a written output. Of course, that is necessary sometimes, but trying to create some choice and speak to the multimodalities so all students of all different learning styles can succeed. I've tried really hard in just the early stages to include our special ed staff in our ELA content meetings and curriculum meetings. I also had in-service PD with the teachers so they could help craft Unit 3, which will be implemented starting on January 24th. That's an argument unit for all 3 grade levels. So during those in-service PDs, there was a special ed educator representative from each grade level that was able to participate as well. So we could get their lens, and when we're ready, we can have them help us to make some modifications to the units. I'm really excited that I'm purchasing lots of new books, as I mentioned, for next year. 14 titles in total, so thank you for allowing that to happen in the budget. And I believe 4 out of those I will also be buying the graphic novel version, so students can have access to that if needed as a way to differentiate. And again, in making the book selections, making sure that we're being culturally responsive and choosing books that are not only windows but also mirrors to the students in our Walpole community. This is just an example again of we're trying to provide more voice and choice. This is a 6th grade narrative summative assignment. I was quickly glancing over it. And in years past, teachers might have provided just 1 prompt, but this year, the students are getting these 2 prompts to choose from, providing some more ownership on the student's behalf as well. And student-centered instruction, this was a big part of the audit as well. And this, I know as a teacher, is really, really hard, right? Like, we were trained to be educators and to stand and deliver and give the information to students, but, they can do it. And at times, they need to do the heavy lifting, and we need to be able to stand back and let them do that. So we're striving for less teacher talk. I think that will come as we get our writing workshops off the ground and with some more PD and sharing with them the importance of that gradual release of responsibility. Again, allowing the kids to do the heavy lifting, and they don't all have to have the same answer, so providing the opportunities where multiple answers are acceptable. Using peer editing techniques, you'll see this peer review sheet here. Part of it was from a 7th grade classroom I was in at Byrd, and they were doing this exercise with each other and having much success, but the teacher did a great job with making the directions very clear as they were going through that process, because learning from each other, just like as adults, is so valuable, but it's valuable for children as well. Providing opportunities for student reflections, so teachers are starting to have reflection sheets for students so they can reflect on the exercise at hand. And we have interactive composition notebooks this year that are consistent between both middle schools, where there's a note-taking section and a writing section, and those are have so far been very important in terms of the students keeping reference sheets. There might be a reference sheet on theme, and there might be one on mood, and then the back section might be the place where they're doing that little prompt about your favorite food or something. So those notebooks are proving to be very valuable, and I, of course, am seeing ways that we could use them in social studies too. So for right now, the students keep them in their ELA classes, but I think they're going to be traveling soon because, our social studies teachers also are teachers of reading and writing, and we can have some carryover there, which is what we want, right? We're striving for consistency and collaboration amongst the disciplines. This is a picture of a grade 8 literature circle. This was really hard for the teacher, who was phenomenal, to kind of sit back and let them drive the conversation. And they did a really, really great job. So this is just an example of the under construction. My Byrd friends especially like that with the hard hat there, right? This is our ELA scope and sequence that we have been working on, and the format the template is similar to K through 5 on purpose, because Shannon and I meet weekly, and we want to have that alignment starting at kindergarten. And I would be remiss not to thank Laura Kerr, who really gave me the roadmaps that I needed when I started this job. So although this might look different, I really did take a lot of the work that she did with the teachers, and she looked at other districts I know that are close by to us, and we've just structured it a little bit differently. So we now, as I mentioned, each grade will have 4 units, 1 per term. We have identified a reading focus for each unit, and a writing focus for each unit. And the text there you'll see for term 1 and term 4, those are the ones I spoke of where we're going to have multiple text options. For right now, for term 2 and term 3, there will be a whole class read of those novels. So in total, as I mentioned, I'm buying 14 new titles. Then the unit plan, we are using the UBD template. So Unit 3, which you see there, which is going to start on January 24th and end on April 3rd, we wrote that one together for the first time, and so they will be implementing that in a few weeks, so that will be exciting to see how that goes. And then we are starting to develop some benchmark assessments as another data point for each unit. So those are listed on the chart as well. So every grade came up with a theme, and then sub-themes under that. So for grade 6, the theme is identity, coming of age, and then spinning off of that, term 1 is just identity, and then it's stepping up and taking responsibility, embracing our differences, and then coming of age in a wake of a crisis. And just to tell you, just the overarching theme for grade 7 is, because we're striving for vertical and horizontal alignment, the theme for grade 7 is community, establishing your place and perspective, and grade 8 is society, understanding your voice and responding to conflict. So you see, we have to start with ourselves to identify ourselves, and then we are all part of a community, and then we're all part of a society. So we're building upon that through the grade levels. So this is really exciting work. Again, Bill reminds me I don't have to have this all done by June. So this year, the goal is we will implement Unit 3 together. So it's pretty exciting that both middle schools, all 6th grade teachers will do the same unit. So then you can have those critical conversations at meetings like Shannon spoke of to then drive change and make revisions and celebrate what went well. We will be writing Unit 1 together because I want them to go home with that over the summer, so they were prepared in the fall. And then next year, we will write Unit 2 and Unit 4, going through the backwards design model. So some things to come. I've started to look at some formalized grammar instruction. Teachers are asking for this, social studies teachers as well, which again, I'm so honored that they have so much literacy in their curriculum, and just am supporting them to reassure them that they are teachers of reading and writing. So looking at some programs or methods that might be useful in teaching grammar in an authentic way, not teaching nouns in isolation and adjectives in isolation, because we've proven to know that that's not sticking. So can we go back to the previous slide about author's crafts. Can we use a mentor text, a paragraph from an author, and can we look and focus on one specific thing in terms of grammar, maybe it's adverbs, and then can the students mimic that in their own writing workshop? So starting to explore some grammar instruction. Excited to work with the digital learning coaches to develop writing folders. This was something that I was going to maybe tackle this year, but have been told I can have some grace and not do that this year. And maybe give students the option to have it digital, but maybe paper as well. So we can store their pieces of writing, and again, as another data point, go back and look at their success and areas of growth. Continue the curriculum alignment and development. Again, we will work with our SPED colleagues, and as I mentioned, use the UBD method to write those 2 remaining units. We will continue to, next year, with the purchase of the books, implement our literature circles and our book clubs, continue to develop our benchmark assessments, and to continue to foster a sense of collaboration in student-centered classrooms. I make a charge that I visit every ELA and social studies classroom every cycle. And again, I'm really impressed with the things that are happening in the rooms. We just want to ensure that all of our students are getting the best education they can. And again, continued alignment and discussions with elementary and middle school. Again, I could not do my job without these 2 sitting behind me. They have been my rocks and my mentors, and now my friends. So I meet with them each weekly. And so we will continue to meet and to build a common language and practices, especially between that grade 5 to 6 transition, and then the 8 to 9 transition moving forward. So that's what I have. I don't know if anyone has any middle school questions before I hand it over to Lauren.
Questions, comments?
I have one comment.
Sure, absolutely.
I just think you can see how appreciative we are of the hiring of curriculum coordinators, right? At these levels, you can see one coming from the middle school audit, having Jody as a humanities coordinator and be able to have, to look at both areas, but just to see the hard work and the alignment, starting in pre-K and going right to 12th grade, and Lauren not being an island unto herself anymore, and being able to have this collaboration to be able to get this, because this is really, it's hard work, but it's important work. And as a former English teacher, I'm biased to it. So.
Thank you.
Gary.
Another former English teacher here, and you're making me wish I was still doing it.
You can come visit anytime.
I'll probably regret saying that. But no, obviously you have a lot of passion and enthusiasm for what you're doing, which is great. And I want to highlight the scope and sequence, because to me that was really fantastic. I think the themes are so powerful and important for this particular age group of kids. These are issues that they're struggling with and working through every day. And as also a school counselor, I see this kind of almost completely symmetrical alignment with the CASEL standards around social emotional learning in terms of how these units are structured, which is fantastic as well, because you are making them think in 2 different ways and build their skills in a lot of different areas. It's not just literacy. So, and it just seems very relevant and very engaging. I want to read these books and I want to be part of these conversations just looking at this. So I think that's really going to go a long way toward engaging our students.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in choosing the book selections, it's been really hard. We can only choose so many, but, you know, I've worked really hard with our media literacy specialists, as I said. I've met with Jasenia, and I've met with the librarian at the public library, and teachers. Like, they're having a voice as much as possible. You know, this is them. I really sometimes think long and hard about that word coordinator. You know, I'm coordinating really their efforts, of course, adding in some levels of expertise and so forth, and being able to look at the social studies lens and try to have some humanities consistency as well. But, you know, this needs to be their voice. So I spend a lot of time in doing that. And like you said, in choosing book selections too, like we want students to have empathy. We want them to be critical thinkers. And that's just as important after you read a book than looking at the craft.
Sean?
So, this might be for Dr. Hahn, but speaking of the same scope and sequence document, it seems something very digestible by a parent. Is that available on the website in some form?
Well, that particular one is under construction, but there are aspects, we've talked about publishing aspects of our UBDs that our teachers use. I mean, there are parts that are absolutely already communicated in teacher syllabuses or syllabi. The problem is that there are also things in there that we probably wouldn't want to make public, like, you know, some lists of assessments or some things, but those are narrow, and so we've talked with the department chairs before, beyond, you know, Jody, about aspects of those that we would publish or that we would share out. At this time, we've done it mostly on like a classroom level, and not put through like a website or through like a public document.
Can I add in, and I would also say that they're all living documents, you
Right.
know. As soon as you publish it, you're going to change it, amend it, add things, and change things. So it's under construction now, and Jody's done tremendous work in what we've done, but I don't think that it'll ever be final.
Yeah, no, I don't think that was my point
Oh, okay.
at all in any way. No, I certainly understand how things change, but just it looks so digestible just as a parent looking through and knowing, you know, what my student's going to be reading, like what that's going to connect to in the teaching, what type of reading it is. Like things like that just, I don't seem like super informative things. And, you know, especially in middle school, we don't necessarily get a syllabus. Like I get an email from each of the teachers that says, you know, X, Y, and Z, and, you know, some of them will send like one at the start of each different unit. But if there was even, you know, just a place to go and look, it'll be helpful because, you know, students, my middle and high school students don't say anything about what they're learning.
But I think to your point, I mean, as this improves and as we have more consistency, I think we're going to be more willing and more thoughtful about doing a better job of sharing it out with parents and community.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jody. I think it's also just important for us to take some time to think about how the decisions that we make budget-wise are actually implemented and affecting students. And, you know, there's nothing more important than the real basics that you're talking about tonight. So thanks for the passion. Thanks for being here. And the work that you're doing just justifies so many things that we're excited about. So thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lauren.
Thank you. I also want to thank Jody. She has taken the work that we started. I stood here last year, and we talked about a lot of the work we were undertaking at the middle school. And at the time, it seemed massive, and it is still, but Jody has done so much working on and improving and taking what Laura and I started last year and has really made it manageable. And I appreciate everything that she's been doing. So thank you, Jody. Okay, I'm going to give us a little bit of, oops. There we go. I'm going to spend a little time talking about the high school, giving us some high school updates. As I just mentioned, last year when we were talking, we talked a lot about what was going on in the middle school. And something that stood out in my head when I was planning for tonight was somebody asked the question, how are we going to know how our students are doing? You know, last year when we talked about having the unleveled classes, how are we going to know if those ninth grade students are prepared for high school? So I'm going to start a little bit there talking about grade 9 students and the transition from middle school. What I did is I gathered a lot of data and I actually surveyed the grade 9 students. And I sorted the survey by grade level. I surveyed our CP2 students, our CP1 students, and our honors students, asking them a series of questions. I culled sort of the more interesting, relevant data, and then I put it up here for you. So the first thing I asked our students, and this is our CP2 students, and again, our CP2 students are students who are often reading at or below grade level, who need some extra support. There's always two adults in the room, either a special ed teacher or a classroom aide in the room. Those classes we keep small purposefully, so goal would be to have no more than 12 to 15 students in a CP2 class, so that each one of those students can get the attention that they need and the support that they need in class. So we asked the CP2 students to rank the level of difficulty of their class. And this survey I conducted, it was at the end of term 1. It was probably the second week of December, so about a couple weeks into term 2. And this was the result. This is our CP2 students. You can see 5 being they thought the class was too difficult, 1 being too easy. Most of them were right smack in the middle, sort of this class is appropriate. I also then compared that with data. I asked Jen Dolan for grade report from term 1. Doesn't align perfectly. Term 1, the CP2 students, but again, this was just term 1. I'll be interested to see at the end of the year, taking the same information and seeing how they did. Term 1 is a tough transition for some kids. So, their grades, we have several of the kids doing well. And this was not, I didn't get every freshman. I didn't mandate they take the test, but I got a good number of them. But we would like to see their grades a little bit higher, get some more support. Again, the term 2 closes in a couple weeks. I'll revisit it and see if their grades are any better. There are CP1 students, again, most of them, the majority, 72% of them said the class was sort of just right. Only 2 students said that it was too difficult, and 1 student said the class was too easy. So again, I think kids are sort of placed right, where they're in their comfort zone. Looking at their grades at the end of term 1, the majority of students had an 80 or above. There were some kids in the C range. But again, I think that would show that our CP1 students in grade 9 were comfortable and confident in having success term 1. Our honors students, I think that it shows that some of them found the class a little bit more challenging. Nobody thought it was too easy. A couple more kids thought it was challenging, but I think that's appropriate for the honors level, and I think that that's where it should be, sort of, pushing them a little bit more. And again, most of those students are probably in several honors classes, and so the challenge is, measurably a little bit more. But even though, some kids felt the class was more challenging, you can see that their performance, that they're having a lot of success. So term 1 honors grades, most of the students have an 80 or above, and nobody had below a 70 in term 1. So other questions that I asked them, I asked students to rate how prepared they felt for homework, thinking that homework assignments are a continuation of what they do in the class or a chance for them to practice independently what they did in the class. I thought this was interesting that across the board, 85, 97, 99% of the students rated 3 or higher how prepared and confident they felt for their homework, which again would suggest that the teachers are meeting the needs in the classroom, making sure that every student is getting what they need, so when they go outside of the class and they're doing the work independently, they're pretty confident as to what they're doing. We asked them also how they felt taking tests and quizzes. That's our CP2. So again, most of the kids are feeling pretty confident. And again, our CP1 students. And these are our honor students. We asked them a series of questions, but one thing that I did ask students was if they could give advice to current grade 8 students what would they advise them? Now, we got a lot of responses. I just picked some of these where, actually, I'm going to give credit here. Bailey Ty, who is one of my colleagues, helped me create the slide. So she helped me pick these pieces of advice that were sort of the most interesting. But again, I think that it's all pretty encouraging. Just keep up with the reading and do your homework would be their advice. Be ready for more challenging assignments. So I think it's appropriate that the students are feeling challenged in grade 9. But again, I think that they're all appropriately challenged and feeling pretty confident in the work that they're doing also. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to stop and talk about grade 9? Okay.
Love the feedback, though. That's good.
Okay, thank you. So then the next thing that I was going to touch base really quickly was MCAS skills. I know that earlier in the year, Dr. Hahn gave a very in-depth report on MCAS data and MCAS reporting and all of that, but I just wanted to let you know some of the work that we've done at the high school. In September, the department worked together to analyze the MCAS reports and how our students did. And we honed in on 7 skills where we thought our students could be more prepared. And those are the skills that we selected that our students didn't do as well on. And our grade 9 and our grade 10 teachers, specifically in PLCs, work over the course of the year when they meet weekly in PLCs, continue to come back to these topics and share lessons, share strategies, and talk about how it is that we can make sure our students are getting practice in these skills. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was all the talk at the high school lately in the English department is AI, ChatGPT. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this or talked about this. I saw it on the news, the national news 2 nights ago. It's going to be difficult for me to explain it if you're not really that clear. The best I can explain it, AI is the artificial intelligence, and ChatGPT is a program that can do the thinking and writing for you. The best analogy I can think of is sort of a self-driving car. I can't explain it, but you know the car can just do it itself, sort of with ChatGPT. What can it do in an English class? It can answer questions, it can write essays, it can complete homework assignments. Why that matters to us as teachers, our assignments are designed to teach critical thinking. And so if a bot or a computer is doing the assignments, then students are not engaged in the critical thinking. We have talked about this ChatGPT went live to the public at the end of November. So we were talking about it immediately. We've talked about it in our department, we've talked about it at the school level, and we've talked about it in the district level. Sort of what does this mean for us? According to ChatGPT, if you ask ChatGPT what it can do to help a student write an essay, this is what it'll tell you. That you could use ChatGPT to generate ideas for potential essay topics based on a given prompt or theme. It can help you outline. It can help you draft. It can help you edit. It doesn't say here, but can also just do the work for you. The response from Chat down the bottom, it does say that it is important to note that ChatGPT is not a substitute for a human writer or editor. However, we've already seen students at the high school turning in work using this kind of device. I was going to give you a demonstration, and then I realized I didn't share access with Mary Mortali. I had a moment in the middle of Jody, so I was like, I forgot to do that. But one of the things that I did, so I was just, it's very easy to go onto the ChatGPT site and put things in. And so this was an example of something that I did in my class. My seniors had read Trevor Noah's memoir, Born a Crime. One of the questions at the end, we talk about it, a question that I asked them, I gave them the prompt very early in the book. Trevor Noah first tells us his mother was shot in the head. This happened in chapter 1. But he doesn't tell us the full story until chapter 18, My Mother's Life. I asked the students, what effect does this have on the overall narrative? So I wanted them to think about why would the author tell us this in the beginning, but then not tell us the story. This was one student response that I got from one of my students. It took them, a couple of minutes, and the response is good. I think the response is insightful. It's one of my seniors, and they really were able to understand it. I put that prompt into ChatGPT, and in about 10 seconds, it gave me something as good, longer, more full than this. So if a student had access to it, they can just put the answer in, and then the answer comes up. So again, it takes away that opportunity for the student to do the thinking for them. So what can we as teachers do? What can we as a district do? One thing we can do is block it during school hours. And actually, that's something that we talked with Dr. Hahn about a couple of weeks ago. And Dr. Hahn has made the decision, the official decision, that it is going to be blocked for our students during school hours. Students won't have access to it. But as we understand that that's only during school hours. They could still access it after school. We can do more writing assignments in school, have students work in front of us, have students show their work, have students use the revision history, require that students do their work through the Google Docs so that you can see the progress. You can tell, this is how one of the ways that you can tell, if you look at a student's revision history, if they copy and paste, it's just done. If they're typing, you can kind of see the progress as they go. So just like in math where they have to show their work, in English be the same expectation that they have to show their work. Mm-hmm. Have more one-on-one conferences where students talk about their writing process. I think that this is a really important step to the writing anyway, that students understand the process, understand why we do what we're doing. It's not the essay that's important, it's the process and thinking and the developing of it. So having conferences where students sort of explain where they are in the process, how they got there, and what their next step is. And continue to require quotes. Currently, ChatGPT does not include textual evidence, but I'm sure it will soon. What can we do in the future? This is probably a problem that's not going to go away. It's probably going to only get better and more refined and be able to do more things. I think that, the teachers among us who are the pioneers will continue to find ways to incorporate technology into student learning. We've already had some teachers, I mentioned Bailey Tai, has, since I made this, had students paste their work and asked for feedback. As a teacher, it takes me a long time to read essays and give feedback. You can have students put in their paragraph or their essay and ask Chat to revise it, edit them, give them feedback, and it actually gives pretty good feedback that students can use in real time. It could take me a week to get the feedback to a full class. Chat will give it to them in minutes. So, as long as you teach the students how to use it as a tool. Ms. McMinimum had her AP language students use it to create a works cited list. There are other sites that will do that, but again, just to show her students how it could be used in a positive way. Teach students, as I was just saying, to use AI in a positive way, just as calculators changed the way math teachers teach math, Grammarly taught the way that, we have students revise and edit their work, or Wikipedia, to show students how it can be a useful tool. I think that in the next, probably 10 years, the shift from writing to discussion, it's the same skills, the same critical thinking skills, but having your class be a lot more discussion-based. And again, that having students explain their process, having those conferences, writing conferences with students where they have to explain the process, explain their thinking behind something. There you go. Anybody have questions for me?
Can I just jump in, and Lauren and I talked, Ms.
I know, and I was supposed to include things that I forgot.
That's okay, and I was like, I told her as I saw these slides previewed a while back, I was like, I'm sweating that we're going to talk about ChatGPT at school committee, but then, knew that it was really important that we did, because while this is still very new to even to us, this is something that our teachers are wrestling with and that we're working through. And as Ms. Carlton said, we have made the decision to block it. not simply because we're naive enough to believe that blocking it will keep students from using it, but also ChatGPT is not recommended for students under the age of 13. We're not exactly sure how ChatGPT or other AI functions use data. But with that said, we know there's still so much to learn. We're presenting on it tomorrow at our EdCamp Day. We have a lot of attendees who are interested in that. And this is still a very, brand new resource that our teachers are wrestling with in the best use. And I think Lauren's done a really transparent job, really great job, and been very transparent with the group here on how we're still navigating it and wrestling with it. I also want to make note that we do plan on communicating more with parents about this. But even as Mr. Reeve and I met to start that process of communication, even we were stumbling on what is good communication and effective to send to parents and what is not. And we're working with Classwise and through our security and safety portal to update that to get more information out for parents. So even though we're introducing and talking about it here, I did want to add a little bit of that from not just an English high school level,
Yes.
but from a district-wide level as well. So thanks, Lauren.
Questions or comments? I would start with, I'm glad to hear that you brought it to us, because I'm also glad to hear that you are thinking about the fact that we can't avoid something like that.
Yeah.
And, we do have to get a little bit beyond just totally banning it, because everything that you try to do with a 16-year-old,
They'll find a way around.
Exactly. But I do think that what the three of you have collectively presented tonight just shows the opportunities that are here for our students. And if anything, we need them to be able to be communicative when they graduate, both written and orally. And, I think that the teaching that you're doing justifies that, or leads students to see the value. And, is there a way to have somebody write an essay for you when you were in college in the 1970s? Yeah, but you didn't get anything out of it if you
Right.
chose that route. This is just a different version of that. And, I know that there are sort of detection factors that teachers will be able to point to, because as soon as this develops, how do you confront a student who really just abuses it is in process right now already. But I guess I'd like to focus on the positive, because I do think you're doing an amazing job.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that it's interesting. My kids are in their 20s and now in their 30s. I know. I say that too. But during the holidays, I was talking to one of my relatives who graduated in 2021 and graduated college in 2021. And he said, I didn't realize when I was here how appreciative I should have been. He's in a different state now after going to college, and he said, people in other states don't even appreciate their public schools. They think you have to go to private school to be get a good education. But they're coming to me to edit their essays. They're coming to me to proofread their stuff. And his point was, I should have been a little more appreciative. I thought, I'm going to get that message to those English teachers, because it was, he really saw that the opportunity is there. And I think we can get beyond this by just showing people the opportunity is here to do great stuff
I think
in
you're
our
right.
English classrooms.
I think that there have always been and always will be some people who look for the easy way. But I think, you have those open, honest conversations with students and the purpose and why are we doing this and what skills we want, that we'll continue to find a way to work with students.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
so very similar to you. I was super encouraged to see the whole scope that all of you guys presented tonight, pre-K through 12. What's happening and the excitement, and especially last year, I know that I asked a couple of questions about the transition between 8 and 9 last year, and just to see just the detail of the slides presented through the middle school, and then a creative assessment to see how, students are really responding to what they experienced last year and how they're prepared, was awesome.
Thank you.
I couldn't be more happy with that information myself. So
Thank
I'm
you.
super
Thank you.
grateful.
I think it was you who asked that question.
Yeah.
That did stick in my mind, so I wanted to answer that for you.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I also appreciate the caution with the Chat GPT, being a technology guy myself. I love the advances technology provides us, but proceeding always with caution, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for your last points there. What will we do in the future? Just know that it's a resource now. We kind of need to harness it and figure out our path forward. But once we do, being able to leverage it for educational success is super important. The more things are banned, the more kids will, they just will do bad stuff with it, or I don't know what they do.
Yeah, I think to ban it and pretend that the problem has gone away is not the answer. I think that will it change the way we do some things? Absolutely. Will it change the outcome? I don't really think so. I think we'll still get to that finish line. We'll just have to find other paths.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very
Thanks,
much. That gets us to the superintendent's report.
Right, and I'm also going to
You
read.
do not have any obligation to
No.
stay for that. Just saying.
And I'm also going to read the Walpole High School
All right.
report. So that was sent to us. The high school students indicated that the students are currently busy preparing for assessments as they approach the end of the first semester, which is Monday, January 23rd. Semester-long classes, they said, are coming to a close, and students are excited to begin the new semester. Additionally, service trips to Spain and Thailand for February vacation. They're finalizing their plans for those trips. Seniors who applied to colleges have submitted their applications, and many are beginning to hear from them. They reported that the winter sports season is already, it's almost at its halfway point, and teams continue to work hard to improve their records. As always, clubs are very busy at the high school. Yearbook continues to gather the photos and responses from superlatives from their senior class. Journalism issued their December magazine just before break, and they're now beginning to work on their January paper. The UNICEF Club is currently running a drive for what's called the More Than Words enterprise. Other clubs, such as Speech and Debate, Mock Trial, Photography Club, continue to hold meetings and compete. Student Council began their plan to plan their major winter and spring events, including a hypnotist at the end of the month. Student Council is always preparing to attend the Massachusetts Association of School Student Councils annual conference, and that's in March. So a lot happening at the high school. So that ends the high school report. For me, I just want to start by saying what a difference a year makes. If you all can think back when you had your breaks last year, I think many of you were spending New Year's Day putting together COVID test kits and going to the police station through the drive-through and spending New Year's Day doing that. So hopefully your break was a little bit different and you had a restful break. We continue to work on the budget for the following school year. And on Tuesday at the Select Board meeting, Town Administrator Jim Johnson provided an update on the FY24 town budget. And I know many of you were able to attend. Our Select Board Chair, Jim O'Neill, said that, we did know that this is the beginning of the process. It's not the end, and there is much work to be done. We'll be continuing many of these budget discussions in the next several weeks. A reminder that there is no school tomorrow for students on January 13th. All staff will be participating in Ed Camp, which Dr. Hahn mentioned, and that's designed really to promote participant-driven professional development for our educators. We have multiple outside presenters coming. This year's theme is Integrate and Innovate, and we have nearly 80 workshops scheduled for a good day of learning and collaboration. I just want to give a thank you to Tom Reeve, Jasenia Burke, Jill Kimball and Sarah Scales for spearheading this work. It's an enormous undertaking to put this together. Just an example of some of the workshop offerings, understanding and managing anxiety with students in the autism spectrum. That's going to be from Mass General Hospital. Neurodiversity. All different curriculums. There's a session on math curriculum. There's digital learning sessions, a session on promoting school choice, session on parent communication. There's another session on restorative practices in the classroom, and Walpole Police Department will be there also to do critical incident training for staff who weren't able to participate at the beginning of the year. A reminder, Monday, January 16th, there's no school due to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. On January 23rd at 7 o'clock, we have Title I night. That'll be at Boyden Elementary School. Information will be going out to families soon. Also on January 26th, I think that I gave you that as a handout, Walpole High School will hold their 8th grade curriculum night. That'll be at 7 o'clock. So that'll provide an overview of the scheduling process, curriculum review from the department chair. They'll also hang out and meet with families who may want to need some additional questions answered. And then additionally, our special education staff will be there to provide specific information. There'll be a 6:30 presentation at the, in the library or the media center. Some other upcoming dates, on February 9th, that's our strategic planning meeting that will be held at, it'll be 8 o'clock, we're gathering 8:30 start at the Walpole Public Library Community Room. And that's where we will review our district's progress towards achieving our goals, and then also taking a look at prioritizing our action to pursue growth and achievement of all students. And that's a variety of stakeholders that come together, from our school staff to our administration to community members. We have students attending as well. The Extended Day Program is excited to offer a February vacation camp for the upcoming school February break from the 21st to the 23rd. So that vacation camp is open to all Walpole School students in grades K to 5. There was an email that was communicated home. We'll get it home and get it out again through Mary in the school committee notes. So I'm glad that we're able to continue that and offer that for our families. Aside from classroom visits, on Tuesday, I attended an instructional coaching training session that was facilitated by Dr. Hahn. As you are aware, across the district, we've begun this training in order to provide a blueprint for establishing, administering, and assessing this robust instructional program in Walpole Public Schools. I'm really impressed with the enthusiasm and commitment of all of our coaches. It flies, that time that we have, and from our DLCs to our literacy coaches to our math coaches, as well as Tom Reeve, and then of course Dr. Hahn. I think this was the fourth session.
Fourth session.
And we've got four more to go. So really helping coaches be these leaders and coming up with process to help them and help teachers really set and achieve their goals. So really well done. Kindergarten registration reminder, please don't forget. It's conducted this month. We'll send out that information again and again. It is available. If you can't get to the schools, you can come and see Mary. Mondays and Wednesdays, she's here until 5:30, Mary? And 5, sorry, and Tuesday evenings until 8. So come on down and get registered so we can help with figure out this enrollment. So, and finally, as you know, there's been a lot of background work done on the solar projects in certain buildings in the Walpole Public School System. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Frischer, who's done a tremendous amount of work on the solar project, and will provide an update on this progress. And we're requesting direction from the school committee on how you want us to proceed with these projects.
Okay, thank you. So just to step back for a moment, there are 3 projects that we're talking about, 3 solar projects. One canopy at Johnson Middle School in the parking lot across the street. Second one is at the Old Post Road School, it's a rooftop array, and the third one is the Fisher School, which is also a rooftop array. We began this search about 2 years ago and are working our way through it, and we've encountered some challenges, and what I mean by that is myself as well as the town side, and so that's what Superintendent Goff was referring to as far as direction. But just a quick highlight of these solar projects offset about 87% of the electric used in the buildings that I mentioned. And they would total about $30,000 a year in savings for our district that would be utilized by the school department to offset our electric bills. So having said that, our original reason for working with Select Energy is that they work under the Power Options, which is the largest power purchasing consortium in New England. And they provide vetted contracts. So the benefit of that is that we don't have to put together an RFP and then put that out to the street and vet different vendors. None of us, I think on the town side or on the school side, are experts in energy. Unfortunately, our energy manager has moved on to a different job, so the one person who did have some of those expertise has moved on. And so it makes our challenge a little bit more significant at this point. So just a quick update from there. The Power Options contract was vetted initially, this is where we are at this point, was vetted initially by the town's legal counsel and returned to Select Energy with a significant number of concerns. So they redlined a lot of concerns in the contract language, a lot of it revolving around the ownership of the arrays on the rooftops, who's going to manage that, who's going to take care of that, and the liability associated with that. Select was asked to address the concerns and to respond in writing to the town. Select's attorneys have reviewed the concerns highlighted by the town's attorney and are awaiting a meeting with the town to discuss their responses. So that's the point we're at right now. Based on the number of concerns I've been asked about by the town based on the number of concerns I've been asked by the town administration if we want to continue with this process, or if we should end the current negotiations and possibly write our own RFP for these services and go out to bid for a new PPA agreement. So basically procuring where we are, the services that we have right now. So I tried to boil this down to what I think our options are and what I'm asking for guidance on at this point. And that is, number one, we can continue to review Power Options contract responses and see if we can reach an agreement between the town and Select Energy, which is basically moving forward from where we are now to see if we can get to an agreement. Number two, we can write our own RFP and see if other solar companies are interested in bidding. The concern I have with that is, again, that none of us are experts in RFPs, period. But when you think about a solar RFP, that has a level of complexity that none of us are very well versed in. So we would probably have to procure that through another entity that would put together an RFP for us. So that's option two. And then finally, the option is number three is we can decide not to continue with the process and to end negotiations. There may be other options I maybe did not consider. If you have them, I'd be happy to entertain them. But I think that those are the directions that we have a choice in at this point, and I'm looking for your guidance. I made it clear to the town administrator, both Superintendent Goff and I, that this isn't my project. You know, the ideas may have generated from a place, but this is the school committee's project. And so I needed to talk to you, i.e. why I'm here tonight, about this and seek your guidance on where to proceed.
So can I just start with, you said Power Options presented or created a contract. The town attorney had a lot of issues with it, and it was sent, redlined things that they were concerned about, sent it back to Power Options, and now Power Options would like to sit down with our attorney or the town attorney and come to some sort of agreement. Is that what you're saying?
So their attorney did vet it has red line responses to it, so they did take the time to respond to what our concerns were. And they would, at this point, like to sit down and see if we can come to an agreement on this. I wouldn't characterize that as unusual. Sharon just went through it, and they're proceeding with a PPA agreement with Select for a rooftop array on their new school, new high school over there. So it's not unusual to have these kind of back and forth. And by the way, the KP Law is their legal representative, and their representative is our representative, their specific attorney. So there are a lot of similarities between what Sharon is going through and went through, and as compared to where we are in the process.
So Mike, would it be your assessment that Power Options was responsive to the town's concerns, or just said, forget it, we're not were they open to negotiating, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I think both sides had significant concerns about each other's concerns.
Sure.
But at this point, I think, yes, both would like to sit down and kind of hash it out. There was a discussion about, do we just put the lawyers in the room and let them figure it out? I don't know if that's as good of an option as having the lawyers and us in the room. But I think that that's the point that we're at right now in this process. So there is an openness to continue, at least on the Power Options, Select Energy end of this.
And I guess my other question is, you said that somebody has left the employment of Walpole. Is it the consultant that was coming with the Green Energy or Green Communities Act, or was it an actual town employee?
No, you are accurate. It was David Ruggiero, who was shared by 3 different towns, funded through the Green Initiative, to employ him here. So he was more of a consultant.
So is there a replacement for him, I guess, is what I'm looking for?
I don't know what the intention of the town is as far as what direction they're going to go with re-employing somebody here or not. But at this point, there is nobody here with that level of expertise.
Okay. I don't see the value, this is just me speaking, but I don't see the value in giving up on it now. I mean, I'm disappointed that we're not further down the road, because I was hoping we were getting something done this past summer. So I'm going to turn it over to others, but I would be interested in trying to figure out a way to continue to forge ahead. Carrie?
I would agree with Nancy. I think the conversation hasn't happened yet, the
Right.
face-to-face conversation, so it feels a little bit premature to pull the plug, no pun intended, on this. But especially if you're telling us that this is not an unprecedented situation between a school department, a town, and this vendor to be negotiating a little bit over the terms. And did I understand you correctly that the person who negotiated this on Sharon's behalf with Select is the person who's negotiating it on Walpole's behalf?
That represent, our attorney with KP Law
Right.
is the same individual who raised similar concerns with Sharon, is the same individual who's raising this concerns with Walpole. They're of a similar nature, so it is the same attorney at KP Law.
Representing the town, Walpole.
The town of Walpole, they also
Okay.
represent Sharon.
Okay, so has that negotiation with Sharon concluded?
I believe so.
And are they moving ahead?
I believe so.
Okay, so then, that gives me hope that this person who kind of already knows the lay of the land and has successfully negotiated terms might be able to do it again in this circumstance. And I would also not be in favor of stepping away from the process at this time.
I could add a bit of information, I know that.
Oh, please.
Sharon's new high school was designed by TAP-A. Their lead architect is Chris Blesson. Select Energy is working with Chris Blesson on that project to put the solar array on the rooftop. So I just think it bears mentioning that Chris, who, when it comes to our middle school, because I think that was another question.
That's chapter 2 of my questions, yeah.
That had come up as well. I did speak to Chris today and asked for just a general sense of things, like where do we go, how, when does this start to come up? And I think that time period is coming. It's approaching us for a decision about the middle school. It's not as critical It can happen once the building is done. It can happen years after. That building is solar ready for an array on the rooftop, so that decision can come. But it's a similar decision to what we're looking at right now. Unless the town wants to lay out a pretty sizable amount of capital to put an array on that building, if that's what we decide, we wouldn't go down that path and purchase it ourselves. We would go to the PPA agreement, which is basically mirrors what we're talking about that we're going through in this process. And I was hopeful that a decision of that sort with these three projects would benefit us when it came to the middle school.
Me
So
too.
there's, that's what I was hopeful about. Sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to cut you.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Go ahead, Bill.
Through you, Madam Chair, I have a number of thoughts. I will give my kindest to you, which is, I think the message I'd like to give through you is to the town is to figure it out. I think this is not rocket science. We've seen Sharon can do it. I am moved to kinder words because of the students we saw about 2 hours ago with their solar projects who are clearly learning about this stuff. And every morning when I bound out, all 320 pounds of me bounds out of my bed and I look out into my backyard and all the God's furry creatures running around and I see the big flat roof of the Fisher School with no trees around it. I think it's important that we take a step back for a moment and acknowledge the fact that we began this process many years ago. Town meeting voted to go forward at our behest 8 months ago. We became a green community over a year ago. Over 4 years from now ago, we were beginning to speak about this. And I think just before the pandemic, you were driving around looking at rooftops. So I think these types of things, which I, as we all know, have a bit of experience in, it's important to be cognizant of the fact that these projects are, number one, dependent upon credits which time out. And I think if we had moved faster, we'd be getting more money. But I think that there are three reasons why we started this endeavor in the first place. The first of which is the possibility to generate revenue over otherwise useless flat roofs, which we have, over the last 10 years, done a lot of work to shore up, especially at Fisher and the tin roof at Old Post Road. I think so. We're talking about $770,000 over the life of this in savings. And as you know, as you spoke to us at our first sort of collaborative budget meeting a few months ago, the electrical costs were astronomical. I'm sitting, I was, as you were speaking, looking at the table we're sitting at, and there are eight plugs and 8 sort of USB cable jacks in just this new town hall meeting room. And so all of our schools will continue to have more and more technological devices in them. Our energy costs are going to continue to grow. And, again, as town meeting members, many of us voted for a resolution to seek to make the town carbon neutral by 2050. And we don't achieve those goals. And I think the town and its representatives in a whole number of different areas have shown and signaled that this is something we want to pursue. So I think it's very easy. If KP Law can figure it out in Sharon, KP Law can figure it out in Walpole. But more importantly, I would ask that it sounds like there's an emergent consensus that we want to continue to move forward. I think this is the time to begin to ask, what about Bird as well? What about, I don't know, what's the our sister board, the Selectmen's plan for this giant building that is a big roof as well? I think we should be having that dialogue. And when I brought it up with 2 of our colleagues on the board that meets here Tuesday night, they thought everything was going along fine. So I think there's a communication piece here, but I think we need to center the fact that this is something that is a priority for us because it speaks to a bunch of needs, and it speaks to the way in which we operate as a body, which is to seek solutions, often ourselves, often at the forefront, often the first kind of out of the plane when we do that. But also, I think it's a good model for students like the ones who are here today. I just happened over the break to be reading a whole bunch of school committee town reports from the 1920s, and they were talking about modeling different sort of industrial activities in the schools at that time. And so this is the forefront now. So I would encourage you not only to do this, but to begin having a dialogue about, hey, we drive by the high school, there's all those wonderful Timberwolf banners on top of light fixtures, perhaps each one of them should have a circular wind chime. They have those at IBW 103 as you drive by it every many days on Route 95. So I think we can figure this out. I think it's well within the good, well-meaning people in town government's capacity to do. And I know you, it goes without saying, and you kind of soft-pedaled it. You've been putting a tremendous amount of work in this. This is not necessarily the beginning of your bailiwick, but you've grown as an administrator to address this. So I think the message is get it done and figure it out to our colleagues on the town side.
I would go ahead, Mark.
Ballywick again, Bill.
I see you notice that. That was my vocab word for today. So.
I would just say, Mike, one thought is, did Sharon work out a good deal, or did they just decide they want solar, so they took the deal? You know what I mean? I don't know what the nature of Sharon's solution was. That's just food for thought.
Yeah, I don't have the intimate details. I don't even know if Chris would even know the answer to that, but I know that they are proceeding with it, so there had to be some type of resolution that they came to.
Well, I feel strongly enough to take a vote to ask for a resolution or a meeting to figure out why we can't get beyond this, because I don't want to just talk about it here and then have it go nowhere. I think that it would be helpful to get the Sharon contract and see what they agreed to, because to Mark's point, if there's a reason that we would look at that and say, oh, we would never do that because of X, Y, and Z, fine. But I think we should try to get this resolved in the next month. I would like to either know that we have negotiations going on between our town and Power Options, or that we have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen to figure out what needs to happen in order to make that happen. And if there's a reason, then I just don't know it. Like, I wouldn't be comfortable just saying, forget it. So I don't know if the board feels comfortable trying to put a little bit of a time limit on it, but I would rather not be talking about this again in 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is.
Through you, I support that. I think, obviously, negotiations are done between the two parties, and we wouldn't get into the particulars here, but there, as you've said, there's a couple of ways to skin this cat, and I think we just need to know that it's not for lack of action that this project is currently stalled, and we need to see some sort of movement. And I would probably ask that, in addition to what Chair Gallivan has asked for, that we seek at least, I don't know, monthly updates to the committee, whether it be through you or from them, both ours and the select board, who also voted unanimously in favor of this thing, about how far, how we're progressing. I think that's very, very reasonable to ask.
So do we want to put it into a motion, or do we want to just ask Mary to convey that information to the select board for us?
I think we should probably just, given the fact that we're on the edges of the superintendent's report and it's on an agenda item.
Right.
I think we're pretty clear that this is something we've talked a lot about. We're looking for an update and looking for action, so. I think that we could declare a consensus. Yeah, we've given you pretty clear.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to bring it up, but I was concerned about it, because once you start thinking about budget, you think, why, we can't drop the ball on this one. So.
No, absolutely.
I don't really care how the information gets conveyed. So you feel comfortable that you can convey what we talked about?
Yep.
So we know how school committee wants to proceed.
Excellent work.
Good.
Yep.
So
Thank
move
you for the
forward.
guidance.
You guys will do a great job. Thank you.
And just one thing, I was mistaken on a date for Title I. It's January 30th. Thanks, Dr. Hahn, from 6 to 7. Just to note it in the
Bridget, I have one other update on a more
On the-
positive vein. We were finally able to reach out to Eversource. This is the energy study going on at the high school that we had
Yes.
proposed and talked about. So Chris Bless and I met today with Eversource and their representatives in regards to the funding for the energy engineering study for Walpole High School related to HVAC. The good news is that it is very likely that Eversource will cover most, if not all, of the expenses of conducting a very thorough engineering study at Walpole High School to review the replacement of HVAC equipment that is at the end of its useful life. Since we intend to introduce heat pump technology that is part of an electrification transition away from fossil fuels, much of the equipment will be incentivized as part of an electrification incentive pathway that Eversource has specifically. So as much as I didn't want to ask them, because I didn't like how it sounds, does that include air conditioning? And I hate that term, but it changed the pathway. That's where the electrification pathway came up. But they'd said, yes, that would qualify. So we could go with heat and air conditioning and have it incentivized significantly by Eversource. Eversource will allow us to employ Andelman and Lelick, who are our current engineering experts on the middle school and who will be consulting on the high school renovated portion of the building. So that's a win for us as well. And then once the study is complete, Eversource will provide us with solutions for the high school HVAC, which will include potential phasing options and applicable incentives. So we'll have an option over 3 years to cost it out, and then they will divulge at that point what their incentives are. So really a favorable meeting. And honestly, the biggest challenge with them is keeping them engaged with us. So Chris and I are strategizing about, okay, how do we keep these guys at the table? So they're supposed to come back to me, and I'll work with them initially, get some paperwork signed, and then Chris will continue to try to work with them directly, as well as I will.
So do you need anything from us to be able to take additional steps yet? Or are you in a good position to, you don't want them to say, oh, you have to go back to the school committee to get permission to do something.
So I wanted to give them no reason for reservation, I guess. And so I said to them, hypothetically, if I had $50,000 to spend on this study, do you think that would be sufficient to get it done? And they all laughed. And I said, and they go, it shouldn't cost you more than $10,000 if it costs you anything.
I see.
So heavily incentivized is definitely the word of the day, and
Good.
it's really great news. And then Chris would actually do a lot of the design work of the new systems when we get to that final point with all the numbers put together. Then TAP A, Chris Blesson, would be the ones who design the layout of the system and tie it into any renovated work that's going on up there. So the timing's really fortunate for us.
Nice job. Yes, Bill?
Through you, Madam Chair. You had said, I just caught the word choice, and since it's ELA Day and we're thinking about words, you said phasing it out over a period of years. I know I'm insufferable tonight. I guess I would just ask when if we think about it, I think just as we're thinking about paying for this, it's not a question of can you bill us over 3 years. It's a question of can you break this thing up into chunks, because it seems like the way we're being exceedingly successful working with our state delegation and getting chunks of state earmarks for this process, it may not be the case that we could say in 2 months' time, yes, this will be X number of dollars, break that up into even payments over 3 years. I think it's important to, when they're looking at breaking up this project, to break it up in terms that we can take sort of bites out of, not just front load and make payments upon. So I feel like this is unfortunately, like much of the stuff at the high school, maybe a kind of cobbled approach. So I just want to make sure that the billing we get from that and the plan they have is one that is phased, and also we're able to kind of phase the payment of it too.
Okay.
That's all.
Anything else?
It's exciting. I love it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Really good.
Very
news.
exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, you're done with your report.
Done.
Okay, so that gets us to the second reading of the school year calendar.
And the only change, everything stayed the same, except there was a slight change made since the last reading. The May early release date was changed from May 10th to May 17th at the request of the high school, because that's prom. So they wanted to have the early, if they could have the early release on that day. And that was the only change.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, I'll take a motion. Yeah, Sean?
Just a quick question. That March 29th day noted as a day of low attendance, do we see that continuing to be a day of low attendance going forward, or does it just still make sense? It's not a critical question, just curious. I know I've seen other districts move that day elsewhere in calendars or take it off the end of the
Yeah,
year.
no, there was no real discussion about that.
A few years ago, we had a calendar study committee, and we had school on that day, and we had significantly low attendance from our staff as well as students. So that's the last I know of it.
Everybody's Catholic when it's a day off.
Yeah.
Through you, I just point out before I make a motion to approve that the 22nd of December is a full day, just as it was last year. And we're giving you a whole bunch of notice, so I know people raised that at the very last moment this year, but I have no problem with it. So I'd make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Bill, a second by Carrie. And just to answer your comment, Bill, I feel okay about a full day on the 22nd. I did feel bad on the 23rd, but
That's my point.
it's
but
not the 23rd.
I am sure on the 12th we will get questions about it, so it is
Could
now
be, could be.
January, and we're giving everybody lots of notice.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. And we have school committee calendar, which we always change, but we need to take a vote on it anyway, so can I have a motion for that one? Question, Carrie?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, as we're kind of well into our third hour of this meeting, falling before what is for students a 4-day weekend, but what is for our staff, and notably Dr. Goff and Dr. Hahn and Mary, a very significant professional development day that they all are going to be running tomorrow. You know, I just wanted to put out there, like, having a meeting on this particular Thursday, which next year would be the 11th. Does that work? I'm thinking mostly for staff, but I know too, you know, I know Mrs. Cyrek is not here because she's engaging in some college choice activities, which I expect many families might be taking the weekend to do. I just, out of consideration for our fearless leaders, wanted to check in about how they feel about holding a meeting on this particular Thursday.
I think the hard part is that, and I don't want to answer for you guys, but there's just a lot going on in January.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't this, it would be something else potentially. But what do you guys think?
I would say, I mean, this wasn't to address your question exactly, but I just let you know that the 6:45 start time has made a huge difference in our
Huge.
lives. So we appreciate that more than anything, and we appreciate that consideration. But the day being before the PD day is fine. The fact that we start at 6:45 makes a huge difference.
Okay, fair enough.
We've talked
Because
about
the
it.
other thing we could do is move it to the 4th, but then that impinges on their vacation,
Sure.
you know, to get ready for the school committee meeting.
Right, and it's not fair to ask staff to be prepared to present that day.
Right, and I think to Bill's point, the 6:45 is much better.
Okay.
We could also make sure to just move it along.
Take a motion.
That's very difficult.
Stop talking so much, Mark. Maybe we
Jeez.
can-
I just, far be it for me to smash tradition, but there's nothing that says we have to have public hearings at the high school. So as I look at the calendar, we have a public hearing number 3, if needed, on January 18th. That could just be a school committee meeting with a budget
We
public
wanna
hearing
change it,
at the
yeah.
front end of it. So if you really want to do something, the 11th could float into the 18th. I mean, every public hearing I run for the county commission is just a regular meeting that has that as an agenda item. So we don't necessarily have to have, but I think one of the problems is we end up having just one regular one of these in January. So perhaps if we conflated budget hearing number 3 in the January 11th meeting, we have now taken ourselves off a night, and we're still leaving that open if we need a second hearing.
And
That
we
just
meet again
becomes,
the following week, according to this, is that?
no, according to this, it's the 18th, the
25th.
Then we
25th, yeah.
meet again on the
Yeah.
25th.
Or likewise, you could do the first one on the 16th, or the 9th. The 9th could be,
I mean, we
I'm
can.
saying you can
All right,
crunch them.
we're
We're going to change it anyway, so.
How about I'll
motion
make a
approved.
motion to approve the 2023-2024 school committee meeting calendar.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500. Great. That gets us to the middle school project.
Well, they're pouring concrete for the footings for the foundation. Slightly delayed last week because of the rain, but I think they're proceeding this week, as far as I know. We got some good news on the bid front today. Still dotting the i's and crossing the t's, but we've got some good news on the final bid front today. And that's about it. So it's a construction zone now. Full-fledged construction zone up there.
Sounds good. And an update on the high school project. Sean?
Yeah, things are good. I did want to just take a moment to just kind of run through kind of a timeline of where we were and how we got to where we are right now, for just a refresher for us and edification for the public. So I'll start back way at the beginning, 1908, when Walpole was built. We'll skip pretty quickly forward to present day.
There's a lot of stuff in between, but keep going.
Just noting that there was two previous renovations, one in the 1950s and one in the very early 2000s. And just to editorialize for a moment, you know, a lot changed from the 50s to 2000 as far as education has gone, but I think arguably the way education operates today, teaching and learning, and the enhancements in technology, and just what we can provide for our students has changed more from 2000 until today. You know, leaving us with a lot of needs, whether we've known about them already, whether they're currently growing needs, or whether we just see them emerging. So, you know, smart people in town, not me, and the schools at the time solicited RFPs and put money in motion to make available the opportunity to seek out a company to conduct a study of Walpole High School and create preliminary concepts on how to address the space and programming needs at the Walpole High School. So that kind of brings us to the very end of 2021 and 2022. So after that company was selected, a working group of key stakeholders from the town administration, school administration, Walpole High School staff, and DPW was formed alongside the companies that were chosen, Taipei Architects and Compass Project Management, I think now Vertex, that oversaw the establishment of project goals, a project schedule, and a tentative project budget that would have been last January and February of 2022, leading to a lot of time in March and April spent on visiting sessions with key groups and stakeholders within the Walpole High School and district administration, and a programmatic and needs analysis that followed with staff interviews and multiple site visits by our contractors to Walpole High School. And that led to, over the spring and summer months, the development of preliminary concepts of what could potentially be done to meet the needs at the high school. The school committee then kind of joined in the fall, where we oversaw some of the preliminary concepts and narrowed the scope a little bit. And then we presented that narrowed scope to Taipei to begin their schematic design concepts, which is really where we are today, where they're putting the work in, and they'll be doing that through early May of this year, where we'll have a stronger idea of what a budget might look like, what these concepts look like in real time, imaged, and also some information on why other options might not have been chosen. So we'll continue to unveil this as we get more information, but just being part of the working group and knowing what work has been done, there's been a broad range of stakeholders involved, and it's exciting to see where we go from here.
And I think Tepe said something about having today a school committee workshop in March, probably near the end of March. So We'll look
Yeah.
at some dates that we can,
Yeah, kind of a midpoint check-in to update.
That's great. Good. Any other questions for Sean?
Nope.
If not, that gets us to subcommittees. I just wanted to mention, Tech is not going to be able to do a legislative breakfast this year, and we're talking about doing one locally here. So we're going to reach out tomorrow morning to our legislators to see about February 3rd, 10th, 16th, or 17th. Those are all the 3 Fridays in a row, and the 16th is a Thursday. So stay tuned, because hopefully we'll have a breakfast locally. Are there any other legislative subcommittee reports?
no,
If
just
not-
Tri-County is just having a legislative breakfast March 3rd. So I'll be attending that one. I think the chairs, you guys, the chairs are going. And I emailed, sent letters to all of our legislators.
Okay. Good. Okay. If not, let's get to warrants. Sean?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following expense warrants for the amounts listed in your packets. Those are 223023, 223024, 223025, and 223026.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 500.
And I'd also like to make a motion to approve the following payroll warrant for the amount listed in your packet. That is 2323PA.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 500. And we have a number of gifts. Somebody want to take that one?
I'll make a motion to approve the following gifts and donations to Boyden School, Elm Street School, Fisher School, Old Post Road School, and Johnson Middle School from Bay State Textiles Recycling in the amount of $403. To Elm Street School Shutterfly Commission in the amount of $1,773. To Johnson Middle School Shutterfly Commission in the amount of $1,616. To Bird Middle School Shutterfly Commission in the amount of $1,399. To Daniel Feeney Preschool Shutterfly Commission in the amount of $433. To Bird Middle School Help See Commission in the amount of $17. And to Old Post Road School from the Old Post Road PAC Playground Balls in the amount of $243.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 500. Great. We just have a couple of sets of minutes to approve.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the December 8th, 2022 regular school committee meeting minutes, the December 14th, 2022 school committee workshop meeting minutes, and the January 4th, 2023 curriculum subcommittee meeting minutes, as presented in your packet.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Great. And you're up.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 500.